If you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. A little bit again, my name is Freiberg Queen. I'm an Indigenous variety streamer over on Twitch, who's recently starting to incorporate YouTube into their content creation story and journey. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite hobbies, which is reading. I read a lot of like horror books, some thrillers, some coming of age, as well as Indigenous authors. And I recently read three books and I want to talk about them and I want to give my reviews on them. Also, if you're interested in following me on Fable, I can leave the link in the description. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. That's interesting. Anyway, I recently read three books, so we're going to be going through them. The first book is going to be Res Dogs. So Res Dogs is a really great book. I really love it. But Res Dogs is about a young indigenous girl who is quote unquote stuck on the reservation where she's spending with her grandparents because the pandemic hit. So she went to go live with her grandparents, and it kind of just follows her journey from being an urban native and going back to the reservation, spending time with her grandparents, learning from her grandparents, and also like learning like how life is different on the reservation as opposed to like urban, cities. Learning more about like her parents, what does that look like, and also how res dogs play a huge part in like what we feel is community and how we connect with each other and how we connect with the land and how everything moves at its own pace and how sometimes we need to just like slow down and to be able to embrace it. And this book was really good. I really loved how, yes, it's from an indigenous young girl's point of view, and it also talks about how our minds are moldable and how we can, like, there's not a set age where when we could start thinking about community and how us as individuals are implementing and giving back to community, right? Like, how do we as indigenous people, like, how can we start young and build up from there, right? And so it talks a lot about like boarding school, it talks about the pandemic in general, it talks about how it's impacting Indian country, it talks about ICWA, like it talks about like foster care system and what does that look like. It talks about indigenous identity. It talks about like love, acceptance, embracing a lot of warmth. This is a really good book. It's very short. I think I finished it in like 3 days. It's 185 pages, but the pages are this, like, this is how the format looks, right? So it's really quick read. I highly recommend. Really, it's really refreshing. It was really nice read. I really appreciated it. And it like really helped during a time that I needed to be reminded that not only am I loved and appreciated, I also like impact other people. And reading this book really helped me along with that journey. So highly recommend Res Dogs. It's such a cute book. Next book is The Unworthy. So I picked this book up because I was really interested in the author. So the author, if you didn't know, also wrote Tenders of Flesh. So a couple years ago, Tenders of Flesh was a book talk, like viral book. And it's actually the book that got me back into reading because I haven't read in like several years because I was going through my PhD program, and reading for fun was just too much work for me at the time. And when I got off of my program and started doing my postdoc, I wanted to get back into the things that I really love, which was reading. And at the time, it was really, really popular on Book Talk. So I ended up picking it up and I absolutely love Tenders of Flesh. I read it a couple years ago, and Tenders of Flesh is like the backstory and how the main character navigates this world where he is not necessarily like engaging in agreements of the morality of what people have become, right? And I loved it. I loved seeing the world from his point of view. I loved how he engaged and showed like empathy and love and compassion, as well as I really did love the ending because the ending, like a lot of people didn't like the ending, but I think that it fit very well with the character and how he just like experiences the world, but also how at the end of the day he is like a community and family person. And I really did love that. So coming off of that book was The Unworthy from the same author. This book was not what I expected, but it also was what I expected, if that makes sense. So this book, so spoilers, if you want to read this book, please just push ahead to the next book. And I could put like a timestamp. Hopefully I know how to edit that, but I could put like a timestamp in here that shows like when the next book is. But this book right here, it took me a while to get into. It was a little bit dry at the beginning. I understand, and like they're from the Sacred Sisterhood. I got that. At first I was like, okay, they're part of a cult, but it's like in a dystopian world. The main character, the backstory, it took a while to get to there, but I also get why the pacing was a little bit slower than normal, if that makes sense. So the main character is writing these journal logs in the middle of the night, right? And is also processing through what she's experiencing, also processing through like the hierarchy of the sacred sisterhood, how different behaviors equate to this, and like how punishment looks in different ways, what praying looks like in different ways, and also that she is the one that knows how to read and write, right? And so she talks about these things, and it's in her journal log, and so it also follows the pacing of the character and how much insight and how brave the character wants to be, because there's a high chance that somebody might come in and find her writing and take the papers and like punish her, basically like kill her for them, right? So I understand why the pacing was slow and like why it took a long time to be able to get into the backstory of the book, because of that reason right there. It was very intentional. I understand that. um it just took me a while to like really fully appreciate that that's where the author was going within this book. Another thing is they introduced a new character, the main character found in the woods. She ended up like being intrigued by this new character, and this new character has like powers and is very quickly able to raise in the ranks. And the main character, like you notice her from going from I need to do what I need to do to be able to have some sort of like stability in this place, as well as when she finds this new character, and this character eventually finds her. So she finds her in the woods, and then she leaves her because she didn't want to like hurt her or whatever. And the character that's in the woods finds her like a day or so after, um and then ends up becoming part of the sacred sisterhood and ends up having like all these powers and all of these things. And so she was very quickly able to be quote unquote promoted within the sacred sisterhood. And so you find that the main character goes from this point of view, which is just being a hustler, basically, and like fake it till you make it kind of thing, to really having like this full empathy, appreciation, and love for the character that she found in the woods. And I really like that. I think that this book could have gone on a little bit longer, mostly because I personally did not like the ending. The ending was very like abrupt, which again makes sense because the it's based off of the main character's like journal entries. Makes sense, right? Um but it was just interesting to me. I think that if I compared it to, definitely I very much like The Tenders of Flesh better. But if I take them as standalones, this is a really good book in general. And if you're interested and really like the book prior to this, Tenders of Flesh, it reads similar. It's just like a different format. What is not a bad thing. So I really like this book. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5. Oh, and this book, I believe I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. So we have these two. Then my third book, which I just finished this yesterday. This is a great book. It's called The Berry Pickers. This book is from an indigenous author from Canada, I believe, what's colonially known as Canada. And this book follows two main characters. There's a indigenous man named Joe, and then there's this woman. Her name is Norma. So very early on in the book, you kind of just like follow these two characters. I'm also going to spoil this book, so if you want to move ahead, I will put a timestamp of like when I'm done talking about this book. But this book right here, it talks a lot about like indigenous issues. This book is set in the 1960s, and Joe, who is 6 years old, is tasked to watch his younger sister while they're out at the lake. The whole family are berry pickers. That's how they make their money, and they live out in a cabin during berry picking season. And the dad and the older brothers will go out and pick berries, and that's how they make their living, right? And so Joe is asked to watch his younger sister at the lake, and Joe gives his younger sister Ruthie uh, a sandwich and tells her to sit on this rock. And then he ends up chasing something. I actually don't remember what it was he chased, but regardless, he ends up leaving the younger sister alone, who's 4 years old at the time. Then he comes back and the younger sister is gone. He doesn't think too much about it because sometimes she'll just like go off on her own and she would go walk, and that's just how it was, right? And so he goes and he tells he a couple hours goes by, and then he finally goes and tells somebody, and everybody is looking for her, and she ends up going missing. So they don't know where she's at, and so it follows Joe and his relationship with each of his family members and how they are coming to terms with the fact that Ruthie is missing. This is the youngest daughter of the family. And then that's Joe's side of the story. And it follows him, his issues with drinking, his issues with anger, his issues with impulsivity, his issues with guilt and a lot of shame and guilt, and how he really does blame himself for his younger sister going missing, even though at the time he was 6 years old, right? Then it also transitions in between him and Norma. So Norma is Ruthie, but she's an adult and she does not know that she has been kidnapped. So it follows her and how she remembers her childhood, how she interacted with different people in her childhood, how her relationship with her mother, the woman who stole her, who've taken her, and how she I believe she was like mid 50s, I want to say like 54, 56, how at the end of her life, or towards the end of her life, she finally finds out that she was kidnapped, and how she works on navigating all the difficulties that come with that in her mind, right? And how she navigates her relationship with her mother, the woman who kidnapped her. It's a very good book. The ending got me. I did cry whenever she was reunited with the family, and there was this part at the very end where she meets her mother, her birth mother, and her birth mother like stands over her and puts her hand on her head all just gently and like lovingly, and I cried at that moment because that's all she ever wanted. All she ever wanted was to be loved and appreciated, and to be able to be taken care of and just experience like laughter, experience family, experience just like happiness, right? Because her mother, who stole her mother, the woman she grew up knowing as her mother, was very strict, had a lot of anxiety, thought somebody might find out that she stole her, and didn't like allow her to have like any type of childhood. And so she learned a lot about who she was, where she came from, and about like the life that she lost, all from having that one interaction with her birth mother. And I did cry. I was like, holy shit, that is so sad. And it's like also so happy at the same time because she's finally where she's supposed to be. This is a great book. I highly recommend this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on my Fable. And I will definitely be looking out for future books from this author. I think that indigenous writing is just so great and so amazing. Again, the two books that I absolutely loved are both indigenous written, indigenous authors, and talk about indigenous issues. Um, this one talks about the missing and murdered indigenous relatives movements, and this talks about boarding school, ICWA, right? Also talks about like the pandemic and how it's impacting community. It talks about all these two books in general. Was really like refreshing, a great cup of tea. I finished this book in like a week, and I finished this one in a couple days. So highly recommend. These are the three books I read: The Unworthy, Res Dogs, and The Berry Pickers. And I will put those in the description below as well if people are interested. I'll also put my Fable information below as well if people are interested. Now, let's get to what I'm excited to read. So, I'm really excited to read Moon of the Crusted Snow. So, Moon of the Crusted Snow has been on my TBR for like ever, and I put it on my Throne wish list, which I could also put that in this description. But basically, Throne is for people who want to buy you things, and it gets sent to you in a safe way for both the buyer, the person who's sending, and the receiver, the person who's receiving the gift, right? And I got this from one of my viewers. I got this, and I got this one at the same time. They bought me both of them. And this book has been on my TBR forever, and I'm really excited because it's supposed to be a thriller. Um, let's see, I could read the synopsis right here. As one society collapses, another is reborn. With winter looming, a small northern Anishinaabe community goes dark, cut off from power and communication with no foreseeable resolution. Only very few residents truly realize the community's shortfalls. When unexpected visitors arrive, escaping the crumbling society to the south, tensions rise and allegations are divided. The harsh winter months pass slowly, and food supply dwindles as death toll and panic rise. But the greatest threat to the survival of the reserve might come from within the community itself. And so this is another Indigenous book that focuses on the thriller and horror aspect, and I absolutely love, and I'm so excited for this. Excited to read this one. Hopefully, I could get this one done within the next couple weeks. Another book I'm excited to read is Bones and All. So this book I never would have picked up for myself, mostly because looking at the cover, it looks like a romance novel. I'm not really big into romance. I don't know. I haven't gotten into that like niche yet, and hopefully one day I will, but we'll see. Anyway, so this book was actually a date with a blind book like thing like I got. It came with this, and it also came with a bunch of like other things. Here's like the bookmark, and I have like some tabs right there as well. But this book I did put in there that I wanted to read like a thriller. This was also given to me by a viewer of my channel, and from my throne, and it was just a date with a blind book type of thing. So this I did not look at it for like the longest time. After I got it, I was like, I don't, maybe they made a mistake, because I did put a thriller slash horror on there. And so just by looking at it, I didn't go any further than that. Anyway, I'm packing, as you can see. I am in the process of moving, and I saw this book again, and I was like, what is this? Like, I remember like how I got it, and I don't like know what it's about. Just like from looking at it, it looks like a romance or like lovers going different ways. This is how it is. I didn't look at it, but when I found it when I was packing, I Googled it, and it's about cannibalism. And I was not expecting that. I'm excited to read this. This is like my blind date book. I'm really excited to read it, mostly because I looked at what the synopsis was, and it is about cannibalism, and it's about how like her mom enables her, and then eventually her mom just like abandons her. And so how does she navigate that, and what does that look like for her? So I'm really excited for this one. My other book that I'm also excited for, that I also got given to me from my community, is Dear Hanna. So Dear Hanna is actually the sequel to Baby Teeth. So I read Baby Teeth, I want to say like a year ago, and I put this Dear Hanna on my throne because I found out that is the sequel. So this book right here, Baby Teeth, is about a mom and a daughter, okay, and obviously a dad, husband, whatever. So the mom is like suspicious of the daughter, and the daughter wants to kill the mom. Basically, she's like I want to say she's like 5 or 6 years old, and it jumps back and forth between the mom's point of view and her thought processy to the kid's point of view and her thought processy, and how like the kid is able to manipulate the father and has difficulty manipulating the mother, and how the mother sees that the kid is trying to manipulate her and trying to kill her. Like the kid tries to kill the mom like at least 3 or 4 times in here, and I really love that. I really love I really loved it. um and basically the dad eventually figures out like what the fuck the kid's trying to do to the mom, and is like, we need to get this kid help, which is good. I'm happy they eventually got to that point. It was like invigorating. Like as a psychologist, I'm like, please just somebody like go get this kid assessed, get the help that the kid needs, be that support system for them. But like it was like they were afraid of the kid, which makes sense. I get it at the same time. And so this book actually ends with the kid being sent away to like the school to help kids with like disturbing behaviors. Okay. That's how this book ends. Then I found this book. So this is the sequel to the baby teeth book. It's called Dear Hanna, and it follows Hanna, right? And like how she's navigating like the school, and I think it follows her shortly after getting out of the school. I don't remember. Let me read it. Hanna is no stranger to dark thoughts. As a young child, she tried to murder her own mother, but that was more than 16 years ago. Okay, so she's like an adult now. And extensive therapy and writing letters to her younger brother has since curbed these nasty tendencies. Oh, she has a younger brother now. Now 24, Hanna is living an outwardly normal life of domestic content. Married to real estate agent Jacob. Oh, she's married. She's also stepmother to his teenage daughter, Joelle. They live in a beautiful home, and Hanna loves her career as a phlebotomist, a job perfectly suited for her occasional need to hurt people. But when Joelle begins to change in ways that don't suit Hanna's purposes, her carefully planned existence threatens to come apart, with life slipping out of her control. Hanna reverts to old habits, determined to manipulate the events and people around her, and the only thing worse than a baby psychopath is a fully grown one. With its dark humor and chillingly seductive protagonist, Dear Hanna is a standalone sequel sure to thrill returning and new readers are like, oh, I'm really excited. I'm excited that she's an adult. I'm really excited to see how she, um, where she ended up, like how she ended up turning out. She got married though. That's wild to me. How many pages is this? 313 pages. That's not too bad, actually. But yeah, I'm really excited for the Dear Hanna. Thank you to the person who got me this. Thank you to the person who got me a lot of these books, actually. A lot of these books were given to me from my viewers. But yes, I am so excited for these books. If you're excited, please let me know which ones you're more excited about. If you're thinking of reading any of these books, please let me know which ones you're thinking of reading about as well. Eventually, I would love to open up my Discord to my YouTube audience to like engage in that type of way. Do like reading groups, different things like that. If people are interested in that, please let me know. I'm more than welcome, like more than willing to engage that. Like those different ideas. But yes, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey here on YouTube. And let's read some books. Hopefully I could get done with these 3 books within like the next month or so, and then we could do another book review and see what that looks like for us. But yeah, again, just so people are aware, on the TBR we got Bones and All, Moon of the Crusted Snow, and Dear Hanna. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.